The new rotation is here, and this time our limitation is that we can have no duplicate classes. This changes a decent amount since Laia is pretty much mandatory, and that means no warriors as our attack stackers and no warriors as our debuffers. There was also something kind of interesting that happened for last rotation for top 3 near the very end, but I'll save that for the end of the video for anybody who actually wants to listen to that. As usual, I'll go over the roles, the alternative units for each slot, and the stats for the units that I will be using. You can see here 4 different classes. This just means no duplicates. So Laia being pretty much mandatory means that no warriors in the other slots. Laia is our cleanser and our main DPS. Next up is the healer slot. I'm using Mascot Hazel as my DPS is or my attack stacker rather, is a warrior, and she can give him greater attack buff and also 10% attack from her skill tree. Some alternatives, Amelia is nice. Amelia lets you attack buff one person only, but her CR manipulation can open up some interesting options. And then there is just good old Tamarin, works pretty well for this fight as well. For the AoE Debuffer, Euphine is not an option anymore, since she is warrior. So Calric would generally be the next best, as he also has an attack percent imprint. The problem being that the best attack stackers after the warriors are all mages. And the drop-off after that is pretty big, to the point where I don't even think it's worth going for the attack percent imprint, and you would actually opt to use Cecilia instead as the best one, I think. If you want to use a mage, you can. You would just have to use a non-mage as your attack stacker. Calric, Fairy Tale Tenebria, and Cecilia are the best ones, though Cecilia does require +4 in her S3 to hit 100%, as these 3 have 100% debuff chance on their S3, and they're also contact skills, because you have to actually hit the ads for them to get an extra turn. AOL and Hellion Lua both have 100% debuff chance, but they're non-attack skills, so you'd have to hit the ads with somebody else after you debuff them. It is doable, but just make your turn order very different from a standard run. Then some RNG options, there's Tempest Surin, there's Bellion, and there's Senya, and also Cecilia if you don't mola her S3. This is just if you don't want to like mola or build units and you just want to get it over with. You can play the RNG a bit on your S3 debuff chance and just do like 1 or 2 phases. Good for top 5% or top 10%, whatever you want. Next up is this DPS slot. I'm using Roy Mustang because I'm pretty sure he's the best DPS, at least that I can think of. The alternative backup would be Sylvain Sage Vivian, and if you're using a mage as your debuffer and you can't use a mage as your DPS, or rather your attack stacker, then you would just use Landy, as I think Landy is the best for non-mage and non-warrior. So of course these units are all kind of hard to get. There's 1 collab unit, 1 ML5, and 1 limited unit. So really any high attack unit you have works fine here, especially if you're not aiming for top 100. Now we can take a look at their stats. First up is Laia. For Laia, you just max out her HP, and then the speed you can deal with later. You can just play around it or tune around it, whatever her speed is. The high HP is the important part. For Artifact, the best one's going to be our Beautiful Seasons. Gives 20% damage against boss monsters. This or Strawberry Cake are the 2 main ones. The alternative is going to be Symbol of Unity. It only gives 16%, but it's still the next best option. Somebody mentioned Prayer of Solitude to me last time, and I checked my +24 Prayer of Solitude versus +30 Symbol. The Symbol does more damage. Maybe at +30 it evens out, but it's pretty much the exact same either way. It's not that big of a difference. Next up is Mascot Hazel. The important thing for Hazel is just her speed. It's the only thing that matters, as you just want to make sure your speed tuning works. Besides that, the rest of her stats should ideally be into DPS stats, attack, crit chance, and crit damage, with speed and pen sets. I just didn't want to re-gear her because we don't have unequip right now. So ideally, you can see the DPS Hazel I used last time. A bit slower because it worked with that setup, but this time I needed her a bit faster. If I was willing to re-gear her, she'd be speed pen, 260 speed with full DPS stats. Then for the artifact, I've got Warhorn on her. 10% attack to all allies, and then also the CR push onto Hazel. Ends up helping me out sometimes. Next up is Cecilia. For Cecilia, her E doesn't matter at all, first off. And then for artifact, super duper water shooter, unless you have this on Hazel and you want to put Warp 1 on Cecilia, that also works out. For her stats though, the speed, you just want to be faster than Laia, and keep in mind that Laia pushes herself on S1. So you do want to make sure that you're able to stay ahead of Laia and actually get your 2 hits in during the break phase. Just make sure you're not too slow. Then the rest of the stats, she's an HP scaler, so it would be HP, crit chance, and crit damage, ideally on Destruction pen sets. I just didn't want to regear her. And then of course, if you're using a non-HP scaler, the HP would just be attack. And I should mention that her S3 does require +4 to hit 100% provoke chance. If you're not willing to do that, then you just have 85%. And then we've got Roy Mustang. Roy Mustang is just max out his attack, and then give him Cruel Mischief. That's it. I should also mention that it kind of sucks that we don't have Fighting Spirit, as DDR completely blocks Fighting Spirit, because it means that we can't use S3. S3 is a bit less damage, or not being able to use S3 means that we do a bit less damage on his second hit in the break phase, which adds up a little bit, but it's whatever. The thing that sucks more is needing to have Mascot Hazel extend his attack or his greater attack buff, because he can't extend it himself without using S3. That's it for the stats though, and now we can take a look at our run. So in terms of the speed tuning for this fight, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. One, whenever Hazel uses her S2, she does get CR, and I know how my phase 1 is going to work, so I'm spamming Hazel S2 when it comes up just for the CR, otherwise I don't cut Laia in time in the break phase. The other thing is your DPS is also going to change your rotations. Like, Roy pushes 30% every time he uses S1, which is a lot. Somebody like Sylvain Sage Vivian would get speed buff, but then get stripped by DDR whenever he moves. And Landy only pushes 15%. Some other DPS might not push at all. So depending on that, your rotations are going to look a bit different from mine. As usual, we're just kind of waiting for DDR to press S2, while keeping an eye at the number at the top. 65 is the magic number, and we are coming up on that pretty much right now. So now we're at 65. We gotta see where Roy and Cecilia are. Cecilia is slightly behind Roy, but she'll move ahead of Roy since DDR still has a lot of room to go before he hits 100%. So we'll skip our turn, we'll use Hazel S3 on Roy. This gives him greater attack buff. Cecilia S3 to provoke, and we still got 1 hit left since we're at 65%. Skip this hit by using S2, and then Roy can do the final hit to enter break phase. This is where not having Fighting Spirit kind of sucks, because we can't extend our greater attack buff, but specifically in this phase for me, I loop around and I can just give greater attack buff to Cecilia and extend Roy's greater attack buff. So now, Laia used S2 and we can actually start doing our hits. Same as last rotation, we're just going to rush our 6 hits. One important thing is to make sure that we do have target weakness on Laia. Right after she does her first S1, we have to make sure we use an attack skill. It's not really relevant for this one because it lines up, but the second and third break phases will have a better example of needing to time it a little bit. We're at our 6 hits, so we're going to skip our turn, also give greater attack buff to Roy since it wore off, and also give target weakness to Laia as well as attack buff. So now we enter the second phase, and as usual, we are just waiting for DDR to press S2. At this point, your HP is going to start dropping a little bit. Just as with any DDR fight, the damage you take is fake, because it's all just current HP percent damage coming from you taking turns. The only HP you really need to watch out for is Roy's HP. Just make sure he's not going to die to DDR S1, which I kind of messed up, did it a little bit too risky there by using Hazel S1. So if Hazel does not cut DDR here, my Roy is 100% dead. but the Warhorn proc lets my Hazel cut. Did not account for that at all. I thought I was going to have to reset. She S2s him and we're able to survive though. We're just going to use S3 for fun. It's like an extra 40k damage or 30k, doesn't really matter. And here you'd want to check since we're at 65. I kind of just went for it because I already knew how it would be. But we can take a look at it now instead. So Roy is pushed up so far, 30%, Cecilia still has 10% to go. That even though Cecilia is faster than Roy's going to take his turn first, so it's fine for us to go to 60 here, as Cecilia's S3 is going to enter us into the break phase, and Laia is going to be able to move before Roy does. So now we're going to wait for DDR to press S2. DDR presses S2, Laia gets her extra turn, we use S2. So we can see Roy is so far ahead, he's going to get his turn before Cecilia does. And Laia is going to move right after Cecilia does as well, which means our turn order works out really well here. Now we use Laia S2 and we can start doing our hits. So here's one slight pain point. Our greater attack buff on Roy is going to wear off here, and we can't really use Hazel S3 here, because if we do, we're not going to get to 6 hits if we do a second non-attack skill, and we have to make sure that we use a non-attack skill after Laia takes her S1 turn so we can give her target weakness. We're going to skip this hit since Cecilia is going to go before Laia. We're going to give Roy his greater attack buff, and we can see the target weakness pop up on Laia, as well as the attack buff. The target weakness is good for a few million damage, very worth picking up. That's our 6th hit, and now we use our S3. We only lose like a couple 100k damage probably on Roy's S1, his second S1, for not having greater attack buff. Having target weakness on Laia is much more important. And the third phase is same as the second phase really, so I'll see you guys at the end.
누군가 도와주면 좋을 텐데. 열심히 할게요. 도와주실래요? 어머나. 심판의 시간입니다. 꿈만 같아. 함께해 주실 거죠?
치료가 맞아.
모두의 무대예요. 힘내봐요. 누군가 도와주면 좋을 텐데.
제가 이길 겁니다. 파멸하거라.
공연 시작. 달콤한 응원. 도와주실래요?
제 앞에서 비키세요.
어쩌지? 난 이런 거 못하는데. 열심히 할게요. 야!
제가 이길 겁니다.
도와주실래요? 빨리 해치워 버립시다. 꿈만 같아.
고통은 없을 거야. 효과는 내가 보증하거든.
That is it for the team for this rotation. You can also see what everyone else is doing. I'm pretty sure Roy is the best DPS. I think it's Roy and then Sylvain Sage second. If you're using Cowrick or F10A, then Landy is the best one. Zeno is not good. Elusol said he was just using him for fun. Some people are using T-Surin. It's RNG on the S3 though, so you do need to be wary of that. He's another Belnian user here. Spectre Tenebria, I suppose, is a decent option for her, since she stacks her attack with her passive just on hit now. That's a potential option. There's some Amelia users. So what happened last week, though? You can see that there is a pretty unique team here, which is Sigrid. And I think this is really interesting because this is what happens when they change the Hall of Trials mechanics, where this is the first time a Hall of Trials boss has ever had defense. And of course, Sigrid 100% penetrates the defense if you stack enough debuffs. So I haven't seen his run nor talk to him about it, but just at a glance, I would assume it's just Cecilia can apply. The boss is immune to decreased speed, but she can apply decreased attack and she can apply unhealable if you use the S3E. Sigrid can also apply unhealable, which is it's like overkill because you already have unhealable there. But you've got also just bleeds from Sigrid S1s with Amelia to spam push Sigrid, I would assume, to get more bleeds in. So eventually you could hit 6 or 7 debuffs for 100% penetration, or even just 6 maybe is enough. And then Sigrid S3 would end up doing a ton of damage. So this very big point jump is probably largely due to just Sigrid S3 doing a ridiculous amount of damage, which is something that no one else really came up with. And this is the kind of stuff that makes it fun when they change the mechanics around a little bit, because this is very unique to this specific DDR boss, him actually having defense for once. So of course it's not usable as she is a warrior, and we can't use warriors in the current rotation, but I just thought it was fun to see when I checked the rankings. That is it for this run though. I will see you guys for the next one, whatever it may be.